Captain Jake Morrison stared at the bright stars through the main window of the UES Discovery. His ship had been traveling through deep space for 3 months now, mapping new star systems and looking for planets that humans could live on someday. The crew of 15 people had grown used to the quiet routine of space exploration, checking readings and sending reports back to Earth every few weeks. The Discovery was not a big ship compared to the warships back home, but it had everything they needed for long trips between the stars. Jake had been commanding exploration ships for 8 years now, and he knew this job well. Most days were the same, with his crew running scans on distant planets and taking notes about what they found. Sometimes they would find a world with water or interesting rocks, but they had never found anything truly exciting. That changed on a Tuesday morning when Communications Officer Betty Walsh called out from her station with surprise in her voice. She had been monitoring the usual radio signals that traveled between stars, mostly just background noise from distant suns and the occasional message from other human ships. But this time something was different. "Captain, I'm getting a transmission that doesn't match anything in our databases," Betty said as she worked at her controls. "It's coming from the direction of the Kepler 442 system, and it's definitely artificial. Someone is trying to talk to us." Jake walked over to Betty's station and looked at the readings on her screen. The signal was strong and clear, much stronger than it should be from something so far away. More importantly, it was organized in patterns that looked like language, not just random noise from space. "Can you clean it up so we can hear what it says?" Jake asked. Betty worked for several minutes, adjusting frequencies and filtering out background static. Finally, a voice came through the speakers, and everyone on the bridge stopped what they were doing to listen. The voice was clearly female, speaking in perfect English with a slight accent none of them could identify. "Human vessel UES Discovery. This is Commander Zara Veltar of the Altarian Republic. We have been monitoring your approach to our system and wish to establish peaceful contact with your species. Please respond if you are willing to engage in diplomatic communication." Jake felt his heart racing. In all his years exploring space, humans had never made contact with another intelligent species. Scientists back on Earth had always hoped this day would come, but most people thought it would take many more decades or even centuries. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the UES Discovery," he said into the communication system. "We represent the United Colonial Government of Earth, and we are very interested in peaceful contact with your people. Where would you like to meet?" The response came quickly, as if Commander Veltar had been waiting for his answer. "We have constructed a neutral meeting station at the edge of our star system. If you agree to come, we will guarantee your safety and provide everything you need for the journey home. We have much to discuss that could benefit both our species." Jake looked around at his crew, seeing the same mixture of excitement and nervousness on their faces that he felt himself. This was the moment that would change everything for humanity, and it was happening on his ship with his crew. He made the decision that would alter the course of human history. "We accept your invitation, Commander Veltar. Please send us the coordinates for your station." The journey to the meeting point took 2 days, and during that time Jake's crew worked constantly to prepare. They studied everything they knew about first contact procedures, checked their translation software, and made sure their best uniforms were clean and ready. Dr. Helen Price, the ship's science officer, spent hours reviewing what they knew about the Kepler 442 system and trying to guess what kind of beings they might encounter. When they finally arrived at the coordinates, everyone gasped at what they saw. The alien station was massive, easily 10 times bigger than any structure humans had ever built in space. It looked like a beautiful crystal flower floating among the stars, with gentle curves and surfaces that seemed to glow with their own light. Several alien ships were docked around it, and each one was larger and more elegant than anything in the human fleet. "My God," whispered Engineer Carl Brooks as he stared at the alien ships. "Look at the size of those vessels. Their technology must be hundreds of years ahead of ours." A smaller alien ship approached the Discovery and guided them to a docking port that seemed to adjust itself automatically to fit their human ship. Jake selected 4 crew members to accompany him to the meeting: Dr. Price for her scientific knowledge, Lieutenant Bob Turner for security, communications, Officer Walsh to help with any translation issues, and Navigator Susan Clark. Because she had studied alien contact procedures back on Earth, the docking port opened to reveal a corridor that looked nothing like human ship design. The walls curved smoothly and gave off a soft blue light that made everything feel calm and peaceful. The artificial gravity felt normal, and the air smelled clean with a hint of something like flowers. Commander Zara Veltar was waiting for them in a large room with windows that looked out at the stars. She was taller than any human, probably. Close to 7 feet, with pale blue skin and long silver hair that seemed to move gently even though there was no wind. Her features were similar to a human woman, but more refined, with large eyes that held intelligence and kindness. She wore a flowing robe that looked like it was made from liquid metal, and her movements were graceful in a way that seemed almost like dancing. "Welcome, humans from Earth," she said as she approached them. Her voice was the same one they had heard over the radio, warm and musical. "I am Commander Zara Veltar, and I speak for the Altarian Republic in this historic meeting between our species." Jake stepped forward and tried to remember all the diplomatic training he had received. "Thank you for inviting us, Commander. I am Captain Jake Morrison, and this is my crew. We are honored to represent humanity in this first contact between our peoples." Commander Veltar smiled, and Jake was surprised to see that her teeth were perfectly white and human-like. "Please sit with me and let us talk. What I have to tell you will seem strange at first, but I hope you will understand that we come to you with great need and great hope." They sat around a table that seemed to be made from a single piece of clear crystal. Commander Veltar touched the surface, and images appeared inside it showing star maps and what looked like scientific data. "My people have been watching your species for many decades," she began. "We have listened to your radio signals and learned your languages. We have studied your history and your culture, and we believe that humans possess qualities that could save our species from extinction." Dr. Price leaned forward with interest. "What kind of qualities do you mean?" "The Altarian Republic consists entirely of women," Commander Veltar explained. "We reproduce through advanced genetic techniques, but we face a crisis that our science cannot solve alone. Our children grow weaker with each generation because we lack genetic diversity. We need fresh genetic material from another compatible species, or we will disappear from the galaxy within a few centuries." Jake felt confused and slightly uncomfortable. "Are you asking us for some kind of medical assistance?" Commander Veltar's expression became more serious. "We are asking for something much more significant. Our scientists have studied many species across the galaxy, but humans are unique. Your males show remarkable adaptability and emotional strength that would complement our genetics perfectly. We formally request that Earth provide male volunteers who would come to our world and help us create a new generation of children." The room became very quiet as the humans tried to process what they had just heard. Lieutenant Turner looked suspicious. Dr. Price seemed fascinated, and the others just stared in shock. "You're asking human men to come to your planet and father children with your women?" Jake asked slowly. "Yes, but not in the way you might think," Commander Veltar said quickly. "This would be done through our advanced reproductive technology, with full medical safety and the complete consent of everyone involved. The volunteers would be treated as honored guests, compensated generously, and free to return to Earth after their service. In exchange, we would share our technology with humanity and help you join the larger galactic community." Jake knew that this decision was far beyond his authority to make. This was something that would need to be discussed by the leaders of every nation on Earth. "Commander, this is a request that will require careful consideration by our government," he said. "We will need to return to Earth and present your proposal to our leaders. Can you give us detailed information about what this program would involve?" "Of course," Commander Veltar replied. "We have prepared extensive documentation about our medical procedures, our society, and the benefits we can offer in return. We understand that this is an unusual request, but we are desperate. Without genetic diversity, our species will slowly weaken and die. You represent our hope for survival. She handed Jake a device that looked like a clear tablet but felt warm to the touch. Information began appearing on its surface in perfect English, showing medical diagrams, cultural notes, and what looked like contract terms. Take as much time as you need to study this, Commander Veltar said. 6 months had passed since Captain Jake Morrison returned to Earth with news that changed everything humanity thought they knew about their place in the universe. The Altarian proposal had spread across every news network, social media platform, and government meeting room on the planet. Never before had a single diplomatic message caused such heated debate among so many people. Dr. Lisa Carter sat in her laboratory at the Global Science Institute, surrounded by stacks of data that the Altarians had provided. As Earth's leading expert on genetics and alien biology, she had been chosen to lead the scientific committee that would determine if the Altarian breeding program was safe for human volunteers. The medical information was incredibly detailed, showing that Altarian technology could enhance human genetics without causing any permanent changes to the volunteers themselves. The process would work through something the Altarians called quantum genetic mapping. Human volunteers would receive treatments that would make their genetic material compatible with Altarian biology, but these changes would wear off completely after 2 years. The volunteers would father children who carried the best traits from both species, but the men themselves would return to normal human genetics when their service ended. Dr. Carter had run every test she could think of, and the science was solid. The Altarians had clearly spent centuries perfecting their reproductive technology, and they had built-in safeguards that would protect the human volunteers from any harm. More importantly, they had offered to share this technology with Earth, which could help humanity eliminate genetic diseases and extend human lifespans by decades across the city. Admiral Henry Cole was having a very different discussion with his military advisors. The Altarians had been honest about their advanced technology, and their ships were far superior to anything in the human fleet. If they had wanted to conquer Earth, they could have done it easily without asking for volunteers. But Admiral Cole was still cautious about sending Earth citizens to an alien world, no matter how friendly these aliens seemed to be. The strategic benefits are obvious, Colonel Amy Foster said as she reviewed intelligence reports about Altarian technology. Their ships can travel between star systems in days instead of months. Their weapons could defend Earth from any threat we might face in the future, and their medical technology could revolutionize healthcare for everyone on the planet. Admiral Cole nodded slowly. He had spent his career preparing for the possibility of hostile alien contact, but nothing had prepared him for aliens who wanted to hire human men for reproductive services. The military benefits of an alliance with the Altarians were enormous, but he worried about the precedent it would set for future alien contact. Meanwhile, the public debate raged on every street corner and internet forum. Religious leaders were divided, with some calling the program an abomination against nature, while others saw it as an opportunity to help a dying species and expand human knowledge of God's universe. Progressive politicians supported the program as a chance for humanity to join a larger galactic community, while conservatives worried about the long-term consequences of mixing human genetics with alien DNA. The economic implications were staggering. The Altarians had offered incredible compensation for volunteers, enough money to support entire families for generations. They had also promised to share industrial technologies that could end energy shortages and provide unlimited clean power. Economists predicted that an alliance with the Altarians could solve poverty and environmental problems within a generation, but the most intense debates happened in families and communities where potential volunteers were considering the program. Jake Morrison had been contacted by thousands of men who wanted to participate, and reading their letters had been both inspiring and heartbreaking. Some were motivated by money, others by adventure, and many simply wanted to help save an entire species from extinction. Among the thousands of applications, 5 men stood out as perfect candidates. The selection committee had spent months reviewing backgrounds, conducting interviews and running medical tests to find volunteers who could represent humanity well while adapting to life on an alien world. Jake Morrison himself had volunteered to return to Alterus Prime as the diplomatic representative for the program. His experience with First Contact and his natural leadership skills made him the obvious choice to help coordinate between human volunteers and Altarian society. Jake's wife had been supportive of his decision, understanding that this mission could shape the future of human civilization. Dr. Alex Porter was a geneticist who had spent years studying human DNA and dreaming of the day when humanity would encounter alien life. When the opportunity came to participate in the most significant genetic research project in history, he couldn't resist volunteering. Alex was fascinated by the possibility of creating hybrid children who might possess abilities that surpassed both parent species. Mike Davis had been a soldier for 12 years before retiring to civilian life, but he had struggled to find purpose in peacetime. The Altarian program offered him the chance to serve humanity in a completely new way while experiencing adventures beyond anything he had imagined during his military service. Mike's combat experience and adaptability made him valuable for understanding Altarian security and defense systems. Chris Lopez was a high school teacher who had always believed that education was the key to building a better world. When he learned about the Altarian program, he saw an opportunity to help create a generation of children who could bridge the gap between human and alien cultures. Chris's patience and communication skills would be essential for developing relationships with Altarian women and understanding their society. Paul Wright was an engineer who had grown up in poverty and wanted to provide a better life for his family. The compensation offered by the Altarians would ensure that his children could attend the best schools and his parents could retire comfortably. Paul's technical skills would also be valuable for learning Altarian technology and helping adapt it for human use. The selection process had been rigorous, involving months of psychological evaluation, medical testing, and cultural training. The 5 chosen volunteers had to demonstrate not only physical and mental health but also the emotional stability to spend 2 years in an alien environment while representing all of humanity. Dr. Carter had personally overseen their medical evaluations, ensuring that each volunteer understood exactly what the genetic enhancement process would involve. The Altarian treatments would optimize their health and fertility while making their genetics compatible with Altarian biology, but the volunteers would remain fundamentally human throughout the process. Admiral Cole had arranged for the volunteers to receive diplomatic training and basic education about interstellar law. Although the Altarians seemed peaceful, the volunteers needed to understand that they would be representing Earth in a complex political situation that could have consequences for all of humanity. The volunteers spent weeks learning about Altarian culture, language basics, and social customs. Commander Veltar had provided detailed information about how Altarian society worked, including their emphasis on consensus decision-making, their respect for scientific achievement, and their deep concern for environmental harmony. As the departure date approached, public opinion had gradually shifted in favor of the program. The potential benefits were simply too great to ignore, and the Altarians had been completely transparent about every aspect of the arrangement. Opinion polls showed that 70% of humans now supported sending volunteers to help save the Altarian species. The night before departure, the 5 volunteers gathered with their families for a farewell ceremony at the Global Space Center. Jake's wife kissed him goodbye and reminded him that he was making history. Alex's parents told him how proud they were that their son would contribute to the greatest scientific advancement in human history. Mike's military buddies wished him luck on his new mission. Chris's students had made him a banner thanking him for representing Earth. Paul's family cried as they hugged him, knowing that the money he would earn would change their lives forever. Commander Veltar arrived in her personal ship, a sleek vessel that landed gracefully despite its enormous size. She greeted each volunteer personally, thanking them for their courage and explaining how much their service meant to the survival of her species. Her genuine gratitude and obvious concern for their welfare helped ease the fears of families who were worried about sending their loved ones to an alien world. The media coverage was unprecedented. with reporters from every nation covering the historic departure. This was the moment when humanity officially joined the galactic community, moving beyond their small planet to become part of something much larger and more complex. As the volunteers boarded the Altarian transport ship, Jake looked back at Earth through the viewing window. The planet looked so small and fragile from space, but he knew that what they were about to do would help protect and strengthen humanity for generations to come. The 5 men were not just volunteers in a breeding program, they were pioneers who would help forge the first alliance between humans and an alien species. Commander Veltar personally escorted them to their quarters. The first thing that struck Jake Morrison when he stepped off the Altarian transport ship was the breathtaking beauty of HFY. The capital city looked like something from a dream, with towers made of crystal that caught the light from 3 different suns and scattered rainbow colors across the landscape. Gardens floated in the air between buildings, held up by technology that seemed like magic to human eyes. The sky was a soft purple color, and gentle music seemed to come from the very air itself. Commander Zara Veltar led the 5 human volunteers through the city toward their new home. People stopped to watch them pass, curious about the alien visitors who had come to help save their species. The Altarian women were all tall and graceful like Commander Veltar, with skin ranging from pale blue to deep silver and hair that moved like liquid in colors from white to deep purple. They wore flowing clothes that seemed to change color as they moved, and their voices created harmonies when they spoke to each other. Your residence has been prepared with everything we believe. You will need to feel comfortable, Commander Veltar explained as they walked through streets that seemed to glow with their own light. We have studied human needs carefully and tried to create a space that feels familiar while introducing you slowly to our way of life. The human facility was a marvel of architecture that blended the best of both cultures. From the outside, it looked like an Altarian crystal palace, but inside it felt surprisingly familiar. The furniture was human-sized and comfortable. The lighting was warm and yellow like sunlight on Earth, and the air smelled like pine forests and ocean breezes. Each volunteer had his own apartment with a bedroom, study, and personal space, but they also shared common areas where they could eat meals and relax together. Dr. Alex Porter was amazed by the medical facilities that had been built specifically for the genetic compatibility program. The equipment looked nothing like human medical devices, but Commander Veltar assured him that it was far more advanced than anything on Earth. The genetic enhancement process would begin gradually, with daily treatments that would slowly modify their biology to be compatible with Altarian reproduction while keeping them completely human in every way that mattered. The treatments will feel like nothing more than taking vitamins, explained Chief Medical Officer Lyra Nalvin, a tall woman with silver skin and bright green eyes. Your body will become healthier and stronger, your genetic material will be optimized, and you will develop the ability to father children with our women. But you will remain human in mind, personality, and appearance. The changes are designed to enhance your natural abilities, not replace them. Mike Davis was most interested in the security arrangements and the broader political situation on Alterus Prime. Security Chief Lara Telmer took him on tours of the city's defense systems and explained how Altarian society had developed over thousands of years. Unlike humans, the Altarians had never had wars between different groups of their own species, but they had faced threats from aggressive alien species in other parts of the galaxy. We have always preferred diplomacy and cooperation to violence, Security Chief Telmer explained as she showed Mike their non-lethal defense technologies. But we have learned that not all species share our peaceful nature. Your military experience and human tactical thinking could help us prepare for future threats while maintaining our commitment to avoiding unnecessary conflict. Chris Lopez spent his time with Chief Educator Nina Saldar, learning about how Altarian children were raised and educated. The Altarian approach to learning was completely different from human schools, focusing on developing each child's natural abilities and interests rather than forcing everyone to learn the same subjects in the same way. Children learned by exploring, experimenting, and being mentored by adults who shared their passions. We believe that every individual has unique gifts that should be nurtured, Nina explained as she showed Chris through learning centers that looked more like art studios and science laboratories than classrooms. Human children who grow up with this approach while also having access to human creativity and emotional expression could develop abilities that surpass anything either of our species has achieved alone. Paul Wright worked closely with engineering director Vera Corwin to understand Altarian technology and manufacturing processes. The Altarians had developed ways of creating materials and energy systems that were far beyond human capabilities, but they were eager to learn from human engineering, approaches that emphasized practical problem-solving and efficient use of resources. Your human tendency to find simple solutions to complex problems is fascinating to us, Vera explained as she showed Paul through factories that seemed to run themselves. We sometimes become so focused on perfection that we overlook easier ways to accomplish our goals. The combination of human practicality with Altarian precision could revolutionize how we build and create things. After 2 weeks of orientation and cultural learning, the genetic enhancement treatments began. The process was exactly as gentle as the Altarian doctors had promised. Each volunteer visited the medical center daily for treatments that felt like nothing more than sitting in a comfortable chair while soft lights played over their bodies. Within days, they all felt healthier and more energetic than they had ever felt before. The real surprise came when they began meeting the Altarian women who would be their partners in the reproduction program. Jake had expected the process to be clinical and impersonal, but the Altarians placed great importance on emotional connection and genuine relationships. Each volunteer was introduced to several women who shared their interests and personalities, allowing natural friendships and attractions to develop. Commander Veltar chose to work personally with Jake, and they spent hours discussing military strategy, leadership principles, and the challenges of governing a peaceful society in a galaxy that contained aggressive species. Jake was surprised to discover that despite her advanced technology and long lifespan, Veltar was curious about human emotions and the way humans formed quick bonds with people they had just met. Alex found himself working closely with Chief Scientist Kira Nalvin, a brilliant researcher who had spent decades studying genetics and biological systems. And their conversations about DNA, evolution, and the possibilities for hybrid children became the foundation for a deep intellectual connection that grew into genuine affection. Kira was fascinated by human intuition and the way humans could make scientific leaps based on incomplete information. Mike developed a strong friendship with Lara Telmer as they worked together on security planning and defense strategies. Lara had never experienced the kind of intense camaraderie that human soldiers shared, and she was amazed by Mike's loyalty and willingness to risk his own safety to protect others. Their partnership became a perfect blend of Altarian technological knowledge and human tactical instincts. Chris and Nina discovered that they shared a passion for helping children reach their full potential, despite coming from completely different educational traditions. Nina had never encountered the human concept of unconditional love and emotional support for struggling students, while Chris was amazed by the Altarian ability to see potential in every individual. Together they began developing new teaching methods that combined both approaches. Paul and Vera found that their different engineering philosophies complemented each other perfectly. Paul's focus on practical solutions helped Vera see new applications for Altarian technology, while Vera's pursuit of perfection challenged Paul to think beyond immediate problems toward long-term possibilities. Their collaboration led to innovations that impressed engineers from both species. As the months passed, the relationships between the human volunteers and their Altarian partners deepened beyond what anyone had expected. The program had been designed as a clinical arrangement to save the Altarian species, but it was becoming something much more meaningful. The humans were not just providing genetic material, they were sharing their culture, emotions, and ways of thinking with women who had lived for centuries but had never experienced the warmth and intensity of human relationships. The first hybrid children were conceived after 6 months, and the Altarian medical scanners showed that these babies would indeed possess the best traits of both species. They would have the enhanced intelligence and longevity of Altarians, combined with the emotional depth and adaptability of humans. More importantly, they would be completely healthy and capable of reproducing normally when they reached adulthood. But, as the program's success became evident, new challenges began to emerge. Some traditional Altarians questioned whether mixing their genetics with an alien species was wise, even if it meant saving their people from extinction. A small but vocal group led by GenRLFY Vexilin argued that the genetic enhancement program would weaken true Altarian heritage and create children who were neither fully Altarian nor fully human. The volunteers could sense the growing tension in Altarian society, but they were amazed by how quickly they had adapted to life on an alien world. The daily treatments had enhanced their physical abilities and mental clarity, making them stronger and healthier than they had ever been on Earth. More importantly, 2 years had passed since the human volunteers arrived on HFY, and the first hybrid children were now toddlers running through the crystal gardens of the capital city. Little Emma, the daughter of Jake Morrison and Commander Veltar, could already speak in both English and Altarian by the age of 18 months. She had her mother's silver hair and her father's warm brown eyes, and she displayed an intelligence that amazed scientists from both species. The other hybrid children were equally remarkable. Alex and Kira's son Tommy could solve mathematical puzzles that would challenge adult humans while also showing the kind of curiosity and playfulness that was purely human. Mike and Lara's daughter Sophie demonstrated both her mother's tactical thinking and her father's protective instincts, often organizing the other children into elaborate games that resembled military exercises. Chris and Nina's twin boys, Danny and Bobby, showed exceptional ability to learn languages and communicate with both species, while Paul and Vera's daughter Lucy had already begun building complex structures from toys. Combining human creativity with Altarian precision, Dr. Lisa Carter had arrived from Earth 6 months earlier to study the hybrid children and document their development. Her reports back to Earth were filled with excitement about what these children represented for the future of both species. The hybrids were not only healthy and intelligent but seemed to possess abilities that exceeded what either parent species could achieve alone, but not everyone on HFY was happy about the success of the breeding program. GenRLFY Vexilin had spent months building support among traditional Altarians who believed that mixing their pure genetics with alien DNA would weaken their species rather than strengthen it. She argued that the Altarians had survived for thousands of years through their own superior abilities and that accepting help from a primitive species like humanity was shameful. The crisis came without warning on a quiet morning when the hybrid children were playing in the central garden near the human residence. General Vexilin and her followers, calling themselves the Pure Heritage Movement, had been planning their takeover for months. They controlled several military units and had convinced many older Altarians that the genetic mixing program was a mistake that would destroy true Altarian culture. Jake was having breakfast with Commander Veltar when the alarms began sounding throughout the city. Emergency broadcasts filled the air, announcing that General Vexilin had seized control of the government complex and was demanding an immediate end to the human breeding program. Her forces had surrounded the human residence and were preparing to arrest all the volunteers and remove the hybrid children from their parents. "This cannot be happening," Commander Veltar said as she tried to contact her loyal military units. "The Council approved this program democratically, and the majority of our people support it. How can Vexilin think she has the right to overturn our decision through force?" Jake felt the old military instincts kicking in as he assessed their tactical situation. The human residence was defensible but not designed to withstand a serious military assault. More importantly, the hybrid children and their mothers were scattered throughout the city at various facilities and could be captured before any rescue operation could reach them. Mike Davis was already coordinating with Security Chief Lara Telmer to organize the defense of the human facility. His combat experience combined with her knowledge of Altarian military technology created an effective partnership for planning their resistance. They had only a few hours before General Vexilin S forces would move to arrest the humans and separate the families that had formed over the past 2 years. "We need to get word to the other humans and their partners," Mike told Lara as they studied tactical displays showing the positions of rebel forces throughout the city. "If we can coordinate our response and protect the children, we might be able to hold out until loyal forces can counterattack." Alex Porter was at the medical research facility with Kira when the rebellion began. Their expertise in Altarian technology became crucial for maintaining communications between the scattered human volunteers and their allies. Alex's understanding of human electronics, combined with Kira's knowledge of Altarian systems, allowed them to establish secure communication channels that the rebels could not intercept. Chris Lopez and Nina Salder were at the education center with several hybrid children when rebel soldiers arrived to take custody of the youngsters. Chris's experience as a teacher had taught him how to think quickly in crisis situations, and he helped Nina organize the evacuation of children through maintenance tunnels that the rebels did not know existed. Paul, Wright, and Vera Corwin were in the engineering district when they learned about the rebellion. Their knowledge of the city's infrastructure systems became vital for the resistance effort. Paul's practical problem-solving skills helped Vera find ways to disrupt rebel communications and transportation while avoiding harm to innocent civilians. The hybrid children themselves played an unexpected role in the crisis. Despite their young age, they displayed remarkable intelligence and cooperation in helping their parents evade capture. Emma Morrison seemed to understand the danger instinctively and helped guide other children through hidden passages. Tommy Porter used his mathematical abilities to calculate safe routes between buildings, while Sophie Davis organized the other children like a tiny military unit. General Vexilin S forces had expected easy victory over what they saw as primitive humans and their Altarian collaborators, but they had not anticipated the effectiveness of human tactical thinking combined with intimate knowledge of Altarian technology and society. The resistance networks that formed spontaneously throughout the city frustrated every attempt to capture the human volunteers and their families. Commander Veltar managed to establish contact with loyal military units stationed outside the capital. Many Altarian officers had grown to respect the human volunteers over the past 2 years and were horrified by General Vexilin S' attempt to destroy the program through violence. Support for the rebellion was much weaker than Vexilin had believed, and her forces found themselves surrounded by citizens who opposed her takeover. The turning point came when the hybrid children themselves demonstrated abilities that amazed everyone, including the rebels. During one confrontation at the education center, young Danny and Bobby Lopez began speaking to the rebel soldiers in perfect Altarian, explaining how their human father had taught them that violence only made problems worse. Their innocent words and obvious intelligence convinced many rebels that the hybrid children represented hope rather than contamination. Jake Morrison found himself in the unexpected position of military advisor to an alien resistance movement. His experience with human tactics helped Commander Veltar S' forces outmaneuver the rebels in ways they never anticipated. The combination of Altarian technology with human strategic thinking proved devastatingly effective against General Vexilin S' conventional military approach. Meanwhile, news of the crisis had reached Earth, and Admiral Henry Cole was preparing a rescue fleet to help the human volunteers. But Jake managed to send a message through Alex and Kira's communication system, telling Earth that the situation was under control and that military intervention might make things worse. The rebellion collapsed within 3 days when it became clear that the majority of Altarian society supported the human breeding program and opposed General Vexilin S' violent methods. The hybrid children had won over even skeptical Altarians by demonstrating that they possessed the best qualities of both species. Their intelligence impressed traditional Altarians, while their emotional warmth and creativity showed everyone how much humanity had contributed to Altarian society. General Vexilin was arrested by her own subordinates when they realized that her rebellion was actually endangering Altarian civilization rather than protecting it. The Pure Heritage movement dissolved as its members saw that the hybrid children were not weakening Altarian culture but enriching it in ways no one had expected. the crisis had an unexpected positive result. The successful defense of the breeding program proved that humans and Altarians could work together effectively even in the most dangerous situations. The hybrid children had shown remarkable courage and intelligence during the emergency, convincing everyone that they represented the future of both species. Commander Veltar held Jake's hand as they watched their daughter, Emma, playing with the other hybrid children in the garden where the crisis had begun. The little girl was building something with blocks while chattering happily in both English and Altarian, switching between languages as naturally as breathing. "She represents everything we hoped for when we first contacted your species, Commander," Veltar said quietly. "Intelligence, creativity, adaptability, and the ability to bring different groups together instead of driving them apart. The rebels were wrong to fear what our children would become." Jake nodded as he watched his daughter. Emma had her mother's grace and her father's determination, but she also had something entirely new: the ability to see connections and possibilities that neither parent species had imagined alone. She was building not just a tower of blocks, but a bridge between two worlds. 5 years had passed since Jake Morrison first shook hands with Commander Zara Veltar in that crystal meeting room, and the galaxy had never been the same. The human breeding program had grown far beyond anyone's original expectations, creating not just hybrid children, but an entirely new form of civilization that combined the best qualities of both species. The hybrid children were now school-age, and their abilities continued to amaze everyone who met them. Emma Morrison, now 6 years old, could speak fluently in 7 different languages, including 3 alien dialects that neither humans nor Altarians had fully mastered. She had inherited her mother's analytical mind and her father's natural leadership skills, often organizing complex games that required both strategic thinking and emotional intelligence. Jake had been promoted to Admiral in the new human Altarian Alliance fleet, commanding ships that used technology neither species could have developed alone. The Alliance had grown to include research stations, trading posts, and colonies throughout 3 star systems, with more being planned every year. What had started as a desperate attempt to save one dying species had become the foundation for the largest peaceful cooperation between different alien races in galactic history. Dr. Alex Porter had established the Interspecies Medical Research Institute, where human doctors worked alongside Altarian healers to develop treatments that could help any species they encountered. Their hybrid son Tommy, now 5 years old, spent his days in the Institute's laboratories, asking questions that led to breakthrough discoveries about how different alien biologies could work together. Mike Davis commanded the Alliance Security Forces, a military organization unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of conquest and domination, their mission was to protect peaceful species from aggressive empires and help resolve conflicts through diplomacy rather than warfare. His daughter Sophie had already shown remarkable tactical abilities and a natural talent for understanding what motivated different alien species. Chris Lopez had become the director of interspecies education, developing teaching methods that could work for children from any species. His twin boys, Danny and Bobby, were fluent in more languages than most adult translators, and they served as informal ambassadors when new alien species made contact with the Alliance. Paul Wright led the Alliance Engineering Corps, which had revolutionized space travel and construction throughout their region of the galaxy. His daughter Lucy had inherited both his practical problem-solving skills and her mother's pursuit of perfection, creating inventions that impressed engineers from dozens of different species. But the Alliance's greatest success had attracted the attention of less friendly aliens. The Vorthan Empire, a militaristic race of reptilian warriors, had been expanding aggressively through nearby star systems for centuries. They viewed the peaceful human-Altarian alliance as a threat to their plans for galactic domination and had begun preparing for war. The Vorthan Empire consisted of powerful warriors who believed that only the strongest species deserved to survive. They had conquered dozens of worlds and enslaved entire civilizations, ruling through fear and brutality. Their ships were heavily armed and their soldiers were trained from birth to fight and kill without mercy. Emperor Krax the Destroyer had declared that the Human-Altarian Alliance represented a dangerous philosophy that could inspire other species to resist Vorthan expansion. He ordered his war fleets to destroy every Alliance world and eliminate both humans and Altarians. Before their ideas about cooperation could spread further through the galaxy, the first Vorthan attacks came without warning against Alliance research stations on the frontier. The scientific facilities had no military defenses and were destroyed within hours, with all personnel killed or captured. Within days, Vorthan fleets were moving toward the heart of Alliance territory, intent on destroying Alterus Prime, and Earth itself. Admiral Jake Morrison found himself commanding the defense of everything he had helped build over the past 5 years. The Alliance fleet was smaller than the Vorthan armada, but it had advantages that the Reptilian Empire could not understand. Human tactical creativity combined with Altarian technology had produced weapons and strategies that no purely military civilization had ever encountered. The decisive battle began in space around New Geneva, a joint human-Altarian colony where thousands of families had made their homes. The colony was defended by a mixed fleet of ships crewed by both species, working together with the kind of coordination that amazed military observers from across the galaxy. Commander Veltar served as Jake's strategic advisor aboard the flagship UAS Unity, a vessel that represented the best of both human and Altarian engineering. The ship's crew included humans, Altarians, and several of the older hybrid children who had volunteered to help defend their home. The Vorthan fleet was 3 times larger than the Alliance forces, but Emperor Krax had made a crucial mistake. He had assumed that the peaceful Alliance would fight like other species he had conquered, using conventional military tactics and relying on superior numbers or firepower. Instead, the Alliance had developed completely new approaches to space warfare that emphasized cooperation, adaptability, and protection of civilian lives. Mike Davis led squadrons of small, fast ships that used hit-and-run tactics to confuse and divide the Vorthan formations. His pilots included both humans and Altarians working as perfectly coordinated teams, able to anticipate each other's actions in ways that seemed impossible to outside observers. The hybrid children played an unexpected role in the battle. Emma Morrison, now old enough to understand military strategy, helped coordinate communications between different Alliance ships using her ability to speak multiple languages fluently. Tommy Porter used his mathematical genius to calculate optimal firing solutions and defensive positions faster than any computer. The Vorthan warriors had never encountered an enemy that fought to protect rather than conquer. Alliance ships used their advanced shields to defend civilian transports and medical vessels, even when it put them at tactical disadvantage. This protective instinct confused the Vorthans, who could not understand why anyone would risk their own lives to save non-combatants. As the battle raged through space around New Geneva, it became clear that the Alliance fleet was not just fighting more effectively than the Vorthans had expected, but was actually winning despite being outnumbered. Human creativity had found weaknesses in Vorthan military doctrine, while Altarian technology provided the tools needed to exploit those weaknesses. The turning point came when Emperor Krax himself entered the battle aboard his massive flagship, intending to destroy the UAS Unity and break Alliance morale. But Jake Morrison and Commander Veltar had prepared for this moment, using a coordinated attack that demonstrated the full power of human-Altarian cooperation. While human fighters distracted the Vorthan flagship's defenses, Altarian ships used their advanced technology to disable its weapons and engines without destroying the vessel. Instead of killing Emperor Krax and his crew, the Alliance forces captured them alive, treating even their enemies with the same respect they showed their own people. The captured Vorthan Emperor was amazed to discover that his enemies had not only defeated him but were offering him medical treatment and comfortable imprisonment rather than execution. This act of mercy confused and eventually impressed many Vorthan warriors, who had never experienced anything except brutality from their own leaders. Within weeks of the battle, several Vorthan colonies declared independence from the Empire and requested protection from the Alliance. They had learned that there was an alternative to constant warfare and domination, a way of life that emphasized cooperation and mutual benefit rather than conquest and slavery. The victory at New Geneva established the Human-Altarian Alliance as a major power in the galaxy, but more importantly, it proved that peaceful cooperation could succeed even against aggressive military empires. Other species began sending diplomatic missions to Alliance territory, hoping to learn about this new form of civilization. 10 years after the first contact between humans and Altarians, the Alliance had grown to include 12 different species across more than 50 star systems. The hybrid children had reached their teenage years and were already serving as ambassadors, scientists and explorers who carried the values of cooperation and understanding to new worlds. Emma Morrison, now 16, commanded her own exploration ship crewed by young people from 6 different species. She had inherited her parents' best qualities but had grown beyond what either could have imagined, becoming a leader who could inspire cooperation between any group she encountered. Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the Alliance headquarters orbiting Earth, watching ships from dozens of different species come and go on missions of exploration, trade, and diplomacy. The scared military officer who had first encountered aliens in deep space had become one of the architects of the most successful interspecies alliance in galactic history. Commander Veltar joined him at the window, now bearing the title of Alliance Supreme Coordinator. Her people were no longer facing extinction but were thriving as part of a civilization that valued every species' unique contributions. When I first asked for human volunteers to help save my species,